Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're jumping right into a totally fascinating exploration of ancient diets, microscopic biological guardians, and the absolute cutting edge of modern science. We're going to unpack a really comprehensive scientific review by researchers Kingsley C. Anukum and Gregor Reed, all about traditional African fermented foods and probiotics.
It's a pretty provocative question, isn't it? I mean, could ancient African recipes actually hold the secret to modern gut health? Let's think about it. Long before anybody had modern refrigeration, humans had to figure out how to preserve their food just to survive some seriously harsh conditions. So fermentation wasn't just some trendy culinary preference. It was an absolute cornerstone of human survival, safety, and nutrition. And as you'll see, these ancient practices sit right at the fascinating intersection of cultural history and modern medical science.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for today. We're going to cover ancient traditions in decline, the microbes inside African foods, fermented versus true probiotics, testing foods in the field, overcoming storage in science, and finally, the path forward.
Let's kick things off with Section 1, Ancient Traditions in Decline.
Before we zoom into the microscopic benefits of these foods, we really need to look at the massive cultural shifts happening around the globe right now. The real-world impact of westernization is staggering. Take rural Kenya, for example. 83% of mothers there report that their families regularly eat traditional fermented foods. But as populations migrate into urban centers, that number drops all the way down to just 56%. People are moving to the cities and essentially swapping out these incredible homemade fermented traditions for commercial westernized products like soft drinks.
Now, there are some really interesting exceptions to this urban decline. Take the Maasai community. They're a nomadic tribe living in the East Africa Rift Valley across southern Kenya and northern Tanzania. They still rely heavily on a traditional fermented milk called kule naoto as their primary nutritional supply. And for the Maasai, this isn't just a beverage, it has therapeutic properties and has been used historically to prevent things like diarrhea and constipation.
Moving right along to Section 2, Microbes inside African foods.
Let's zoom in literally, because what's amazing here is the sheer diversity of these foods and the specific microscopic bacteria that bring them to life. And we're not talking about niche boutique items. Things like gari are consumed by nearly 200 million people across West Africa. So you've got ugba, made from the African oil bean, which is fermented by Bacillus subtilis. Gari, derived from cassava root, gets its famously inviting flavor from Lactobacillus plantarum. And that Maasai milk we just talked about, kule naoto, it is absolutely packed with Lactobacillus acidophilus.
But here's the best part. These microbes do way more than just add flavor. They actually act like biological superheroes. In products like Nigerian wara or Moroccan jebin, a bacteria called Lactococcus lactis produces these natural antibacterial compounds known as bacteriocins, specifically one called nisin Z. What does nisin Z do? It actively fights off really dangerous foodborne pathogens like listeria and staphylococcus. So in environments where food hygiene is a constant struggle, these tiny microbes are literally acting as invisible protective shields.
Okay, let's hit Section 3, Fermented versus true probiotics.
We have to get our definitions straight. According to the 2001 definition from the Food and Agriculture Organization and the World Health Organization, probiotics are live microorganisms which, when administered in adequate amounts, confer a health benefit on the host. So the crucial point is this. Just because a food has live bacteria in it, that does not automatically make it a probiotic. That term actually carries some heavy, strict scientific weight.
The distinction here is huge. Traditional fermented foods definitely have live cultures, and yeah, they often make the food easier to digest. But for a product to be legally and medically classified as a true probiotic, it needs DNA-based speciation of the strains, rock-solid verification of safety, and most importantly, it has to be tested in randomized clinical trials to actually prove it provides physiological benefits in humans. Doing a quick test in a petri dish in a lab, not even close enough to make a real medical claim.
That brings us to Section 4, Testing Foods in the Field.
184. That is the number of children in northern Ghana who participated in a randomized clinical trial. Researchers gave them a traditional lactic acid fermented millet drink to treat diarrhea. Now, the study didn't actually show a drop in the duration of the diarrhea itself, which might have been because the cases were pretty mild or the kids were already on antibiotics, but it did show a statistically significant improvement in the children's overall reported well-being 14 days later. So it's a really important stepping stone in clinical observation.
And there have been some truly definitive clinical successes too. When you take traditional fermentation and combine it with rigorous clinical application, the results can quite literally save lives. For example, in a hospital in Delhi, an Indian fermented milk called dahi successfully reduced the duration of acute diarrhea in children. And over in Tanzania, traditional fermented porridges were proven highly effective in treating intestinal permeability during acute diarrhea. The medical potential we're looking at here is just immense.
Up next is Section 5, Overcoming Storage and Science. Of course, there's a massive systemic hurdle we have to talk about: distribution. How do you deliver these delicate living health benefits to regions that completely lack reliable modern refrigeration? Well, scientists came up with a totally ingenious fix called microencapsulation. They isolate a highly beneficial bacteria, like Bifidobacterium lactis, and they literally trap it in this microscopic armor made of gelin and xanthan gums. Then they drop that armored bacteria into traditional pasteurized drinks like mahiwu or amasi, and get this. The result is that the bacteria can survive safely at 22 degrees Celsius, that's over 71 degrees Fahrenheit, for 21 straight days. They were literally engineering ways for these microbes to survive out on warm market shelves.
But even with all these amazing breakthroughs, we are absolutely in a race against time. The researchers point out that there is a paucity of scientific information available. Some traditional technologies will eventually be lost together with the associated microorganisms. Because of rapid modern socioeconomic changes, we are seriously risking the loss of centuries of traditional health knowledge before modern science even fully understands it.
Which leads us perfectly into our final segment, Section 6, The Path Forward. The researchers behind this incredible review, Kingsley Sianukum and Gregor Reed, aren't just sitting in a lab publishing data. They are actively urging real global partnerships. They want to bridge that huge gap between ancient African culinary traditions, local communities, and modern global academia. To make this happen, they're calling for a massive systemic approach. They recommend creating a dedicated African probiotic research initiative. We need to fund local clinical trials to prove efficacy, build strong alliances between academics, corporations, and local dairies, and crucially, we need to educate consumers via local television so people realize the massive value of what's already sitting right in their cultural backyard. And this brilliantly illustrates how a coordinated effort could literally solve a piece of the global health puzzle. So I want to leave you with this final critical thought to chew on. Will modern science secure the future of these ancient diets before they vanish from our tables forever? The microscopic potential is already right there, hiding in plain sight inside traditional fermented foods. Now it's completely up to us to study them, protect them, and harness them for the future of global gut health. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive in The Explainer. Stay curious, keep learning, and I'll catch you next time.